Ling Yan, you're actually transferring Yi King Tang's death tribulation to yourself. If you do that, you will certainly face a death tribulation. You will die, and no one will be able to rescue you. The little azure dragon almost exploded in rage. Miss Ye's death tribulation has already happened. She will certainly die, and no one can save her. I've captured 3 princesses and 2 noble heirs from the Yu clan to no avail, now. Miss Ye's only hope of survival is for me to take on her death tribulation. Ling Yan finally looked at the little azure dragon. His eyes were as peaceful as the sea, and his tone was completely bland, as if life and death were nothing to him. A death tribulation was called so because it was a tribulation in which one inevitably died unless a life was given in exchange for another. Ling Yan had used his karmic power to transfer Yi King Tang's death tribulation to himself. It was equivalent to exchanging lives with Yi King Tang. Ling Yan, what are you thinking? The little azure dragon was angry and agitated. What do you mean by this? By transferring Yi King Tang's death tribulation, she will live, but you must die. Meaning? When he heard that, Ling Yan gave a half-smile. Of course there is meaning behind this. After transferring Miss Ye's death tribulation to myself, it will be some time before the death tribulation begins. However, if I don't transfer it, Miss Yi will die at any moment. So by my reckoning, we have gained much time to live. Fine, you've saved Yi King Tang, but who is going to save you later? Yi King Tang has no karmic power and cannot save you. Even a god would be helpless. The little azure dragon raged. In which case, how am I compared to a god? Ling Yan chuckled. I have much time left. Since even a god cannot save me, I shall have to save myself. The little azure dragon was unable to understand him. Ling Yan had always killed decisively without considering the worth of other people's lives. He was utterly cold-blooded. He even considered the entire world to be a chessboard and everyone on it to be pieces on the board. Now, he was even willing to transfer a death tribulation to himself for the sake of a girl. I have never actually encountered a tribulation in which death is inevitable. Don't you think it will be interesting to triumph over a tribulation? Ling Yan's lips curved slightly in a demonic smile. Crazy. Ling Yan, you're really crazy. The little azure dragon sighed and did not say any more. Somewhere in the mainland, Yi King Tang leaned against a rock. She continually coughed out blood as the figures of heroes who had died in battle surfaced in her mind. It was as if the Blood Moon Elder's frank laughter rang out again. It was as if she had returned to the place where she had first met the Blood Moon Holy Lord. Everything had been so wonderful. Farewell, at least she had not nursed any grievances in this life. Yi King Tang smiled mysteriously and finally collapsed in a pool of blood. Meanwhile, the white-robed old man had appeared in the mountain range. Roar! The little white tiger sprang wildly at the old man but was not able to hurt him at all. An hour ago, the white-robed old man had blocked the little white tiger's way and snatched little Yu Yun and little Luo Shuo away. Considering the power of the ancient Yu clan's deputy clan master, the little white tiger was certainly no match for him. Quiet! The white-robed old man frowned slightly. He waved his arms slightly and a wave of golden ripples closed around the little white tiger. Now, the little white tiger was trapped in the golden ripples and was unable to escape. Aha, no need to panic. How can a great fiend celestial beast like you remain in an inferior mainland like this? It'll bring you to the Yu clan later. As a holy beast of an ancient clan, you will be absolutely venerated. That will be fitting for a fiend celestial beast like you. The white-robed old man chuckled. Chapter 12-15 Rise of the Phoenix 1 Before the little white tiger could respond, all the spirit energy in this mainland became extremely compressed. Is it done? the white-robed old man asked little Yu-yun. When little Yu-yun met the white-robed old man's eyes, her expression immediately grew blank, and she looked wooden and emotionless. Little Yu-yun nodded stiffly under the white-robed old man's gaze. Then hurry up and start. The white-robed old man nodded. At the white-robed old man's words, little Yu-yun lifted her eyes slightly. Her eyes in her exquisite little face seemed to emit a foreboding glow. The bright daylight instantly turned to night. It was as if the day had been swallowed by the night. The bodies of all living things on the mainland simultaneously began to shrink. They transformed into wisps of spirit energy that surged towards little Yu-yun from all directions and poured into her body. In Falling Sky Valley, perfected Xianqin, Daoist Zijin, and the rest vaguely felt that something was wrong with their bodies. But before they could recover their wits, everyone vanished in the blink of an eye, without leaving a trace. It was as if they had never existed in this world. Within a few short hours, millions of living things completely vanished. They were transformed into spirit energy, which poured into the void and was absorbed by little Yu-yun's body. The raucous and prosperous mainland was swiftly transformed into a dead silence. Countless lifeforms transformed into spirit energy and mingled in the pitch-black night. They swarmed in unison towards little Yu-yun. They brought with them an endless vitality that was speedily absorbed. In the vast and boundless place, Enchanting had collapsed in a pool of blood and was quietly lying there. At that point, she had been dead for some time. However, her karmic natal chart was quietly changing. Little by little, a mysterious transformation slowly appeared. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black flame surfaced on Enchanting's body. The endless black flame shot skywards. In the dead silence, it slowly formed a golden phoenix. The instant the golden phoenix formed, the cry of a phoenix suddenly exploded from the divine phoenix. The cry of the phoenix burst forth. The little white tiger heard the cry of the phoenix. In shock, it involuntarily looked and saw in the distance an image of a divine phoenix that was large enough to fill the sky and blot out the sun. Is that the rise of the phoenix, resurrection from the dead? The little white tiger was shaken. The cry of the phoenix continued. Enchanting was already wrapped in roaring flames and received endless vitality from the blazing flames. Amidst the endless darkness, Enchanting vaguely sensed something. Not dead, she slowly regained her consciousness. Boom! In an instant, the hidden iron door in Enchanting's dantian gradually surfaced because of the blazing flames. Thud! The iron door instantly melted with a crash. The terrifying aura of Yin-Yang 10th Heaven instantly spread within a radius of a few thousand miles. Enchanting's body slowly rose into the air like a small golden sun, emitting an endless glorious light. At that moment, many abstruse thoughts poured into Enchanting's mind. The primordial qi in her body dissipated, replaced by divine power. The golden glow that surrounded her grew even more blinding. No one could look at her directly. A moment later, the old man looked over in shock. When he saw the golden glow, the white-robed old man looked thoughtfully, and then he vanished on the spot. When the white-robed old man reappeared again, he was at the scene. What's that? The white-robed old man stared at Enchanting, his brow deeply furrowed. He could not see Enchanting's features clearly. In the void, all that was visible to the naked eye was flames. The white-robed old man was not even sure where the flames had come from or what they symbolized. Swoosh! The white-robed old man gathered his heavenly venerate power to form a golden long sword. With a slight sweep of his right arm, the long sword slashed at the golden flames with the speed of lightning. But as the white-robed old man looked on in astonishment, when the golden sword slashed at the flames, it was like water sinking into dirt. It did not even create a ripple. What on earth is that? The white-robed old man looked perplexed and bewildered. Boom! After a moment, an explosion rang out and spread through a radius of 100 miles. The golden flames that looked like a small sun finally dissipated. An aloof-looking girl floated in the void. She was filled with a divine glow, making it seem as if a real god had appeared. The girl floating in the void was Enchanting, who was supposed to be dead. The white-robed old man's eyes filled with disbelief when he saw Enchanting standing unharmed before him. He had clearly thrust the long sword formed from his heavenly venerate power through Enchanting. He had even destroyed all her internal organs. She was almost certainly doomed. Even Enchanting was completely taken aback, not to mention the white-robed old man. When Enchanting saw her unharmed body, her expression was filled with shock. She clearly remembered that she had died. But somehow, the remaining divine phoenix bloodline in her body caused her to undergo the rise of the phoenix and be reborn from the ashes. Besides that, her shattered organs were completely restored after her rebirth. Even the iron door in her dantian leading to the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord, which had never appeared before, had been shattered by the flames. This allowed Enchanting to comprehend many mysteries and enter the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord. Haha, and from an inferior mainland, I have underestimated you. At that moment, the white-robed old man looked at Enchanting, who was in the void. His lips curved upward slightly, arching in a bone-chilling smile. Although this was somewhat surprising, it was of no consequence. Swoosh! The white-robed old man's eyes instantly sharpened. A few golden long swords formed and slashed at Enchanting together. But Enchanting now had no fear of the golden long swords formed from the accumulation of the white-robed old man's heavenly venerate power. At that moment, Enchanting raised her right arm slightly. From her position in the void, she gently reached out with her finger. To the white-robed old man's disbelief, the long sword he formed from his heavenly venerate power instantly exploded before his eyes. At that moment, an invisible screen enclosed Enchanting and the white-robed old man. The space within the screen was filled with an immense and terrifying aura of the Great Tao. Realm of the Great Tao, impossible. The golden-robed old man was in a state of disbelief. Only powerful cultivators who had entered the realm of heavenly venerate could hope to comprehend even a little of the realm of the Great Tao. In this world, there were very few who could comprehend the realm of the Great Tao. Even in the ancient Yu clan, only one person had understood the rules of the Great Tao and had hence created the realm of the Great Tao. This girl standing before him was a mere Yin-Yang perfected Lord. How could she comprehend the realm of the Great Tao? Chapter 12-17 Rise of the Phoenix 3 Yin-Yang perfected Lord. 10th Heaven. The white-robed old man suddenly sensed the aura from Enchanting's body. His heart quaked in disbelief. There was a 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord in this world. However, the 9th and 10th heavens of Yin-Yang perfected Lord had already become the stuff of legends. Based on unofficial historical records, the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord was a mark of divinity given to mankind by the true gods when the world was first created. Any cultivator who managed to become a Yin-Yang perfected Lord 10th heaven had hope of becoming a true god. In addition, at the initial state, their primordial chi would be transformed into divine energy. However, at some point, the power of Yin-Yang perfected Lord 10th heaven had been taken away by the true gods, ending mankind's dream of becoming true gods. A picture depicting this had surfaced in Enchanting's mind. Many eras ago, there had been a major battle between the gods and the demons. The universe was shattered, and mankind betrayed the true gods. This scene flashed past Enchanting's mind so quickly that she could not fully comprehend it. Enchanting vaguely understood that in the past, the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord was not a lost realm. It was possible for any cultivator to enter the 10th heaven. But at some point, the 9th and 10th heavens had disappeared and been sealed within a mysterious iron door. It was extremely difficult for a cultivator to find the iron door, open it, and enter it. Is this the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord? At that moment, Enchanting was standing in the void. The moment she thought of it, a Yin-Yang image appeared behind her. It seemed to supersede the sun and moon as it emitted a solemn and ancient air. Looks like you've had a miraculous encounter, the white-robed old man stared at Enchanting and said thoughtfully. Someone who was clearly doomed had mysteriously survived. Further, her martial powers had swiftly reached the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord when they had only been at the peak of Yin-Yang perfected Lord 8th heaven previously. The white-robed old man was certain that Enchanting had some miraculous encounter. However, even though she was at the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord and had comprehended the realm of the Great Tao, the white-robed old man was still not afraid. And from an inferior mainland, no matter what, you are only a Yin-Yang perfected Lord. In my eyes, that is nothing. At that moment, the white-robed old man glared at Enchanting, who was in the void, and laughed coldly. When she heard that, Enchanting was silent for a moment. Her aloof gaze fell on the white-robed old man. If we were in Central Mainland, you could indeed easily crush a Yin-Yang perfected Lord 10th heaven to death like an ant, since you are in the heavenly venerate realm. A pity that on this mainland, you merely have the power of a venerate and not a heavenly venerate. It's all the same, if I can kill you once, then I can certainly kill you a second time. The white-robed old man laughed coldly. He rose swiftly into the air and drew closer to Enchanting. My rules are that you are not allowed to fly. Enchanting said blandly. As Enchanting finished speaking, the white-robed old man who had just started flying suddenly lost his balance. He fell heavily to the ground with a loud crash. What? The white-robed old man within the invisible screen was shocked. The white-robed old man was somewhat familiar with the realm of the Great Tao. But to attain the realm of the Great Tao so that one could freely change the rules of a world as Enchanting did was rare. Every powerful cultivator comprehended the realm of the Great Tao differently. Some attained a realm that allowed them to alter rules like Enchanting, while others might be able to transform demons. Some extremely talented cultivators even comprehended the realm in such a way that allowed them to temporarily transform into a true god. Within that realm, they had no fear of even emperor-level figures. Let's see how powerful your realm of the Great Tao is. A cold light flickered in the white-robed old man's eyes. He raised his right arm slightly, and an earth-grade divine weapon slowly appeared in his hand. Enchanting was expressionless as she looked at the divine weapon in the white-robed old man's hand. Earth-grade could be considered to be a true divine weapon. Even though she was currently a Yin-Yang perfected Lord 10th heaven, she would be hard-pressed to withstand the might of an earth-level divine weapon. However, Enchanting suddenly said blandly, "There are no weapons in my realm." As Enchanting spoke, the earth-level divine weapon in the white-robed old man's hand instantly vanished. "My divine weapon," the white-robed old man stared at his empty hand in shock. "You have a death wish." The white-robed old man was enraged, and the power of a heavenly venerate surged through his body. The instant the white-robed old man's heavenly venerate power surged, Enchanting spoke again. "In my realm, the power of a heavenly venerate is not permitted to exist." The moment she spoke, the power of the heavenly venerate throughout the white-robed old man's body completely vanished. The old man sank into silence. Enchanting's realm of the Great Tao was just too mysterious and difficult to deal with. Now that little Yuyun had completed her mission, all he had to do was leave with her. There was no need for him to remain and fight Enchanting to the death. At that thought, the white-robed old man's body instantly vanished on the spot. He swiftly fled the area within the screen. The moment he left the screen, the white-robed old man's earth-level divine weapon and heavenly venerate power all rapidly returned. Only the area within the screen was part of Yi Qingtang's realm. The moment he left the area, the realm lost its effect. The white-robed man grabbed little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui. He tore a fistful of talismans and vanished on the spot. Teleport talisman. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly as she muttered to herself. This type of teleport talisman was the work of a master of space transfer and allowed one to bridge space. At that moment, the white-robed old man had probably left this mainland. Yi Qingtang descended next to the little white tiger, who was trapped by heavenly venerate power. She waved her right arm slightly and dispersed the heavenly venerate power so that the little white tiger was free again. The little white tiger instantly fell into Yi Qingtang's embrace. It was surprised and delighted to see Yi Qingtang alive again. "Fuck, I thought you were doomed. Who knew you were so lucky?" Yi Qingtang did not respond to the little white tiger's surprised exclamations. Her gaze was distant. Could nothing be done to change this? Before the little white tiger could speak again, Yi Qingtang leaped up and took flight. Falling Sky Valley, which was previously a boisterous valley, was now dead silent. Fresh footprints could vaguely be seen in the pristine public square. The muddled footprints seemed to speak of how this place was bustling just a moment before. But now, all that remained was empty space. Yi Qingtang stood in Falling Sky Valley and looked at the emptiness before her. Not a sound could be heard in the huge valley. In the past, all birdsong would have vanished by night, leaving only the sound of the wind and the rustling of grass. Chapter 12-19 Never Give Up to You. The little white tiger nestled in Yi Qingtang's arms and looked at the desolation before it. It subconsciously tried to say something. But before it could finish speaking, Yi Qingtang had turned and left swiftly with it in tow. The Yi house in Lin Town was completely silent. All the furniture was in its original position in the empty hall but covered with dust. Yi Qingtang carried the little white tiger and slowly walked through the Yi house. She looked through her father's study, her own room, and the previously bustling martial arts arena. "Eldest young lady," an almost inaudible voice reverberated through Yi Qingtang's mind. She subconsciously turned and vaguely seemed to see the Yi family youths gathered together, their youthful and vigorous smiling faces before her. But when Yi Qingtang looked closely, all she could see was emptiness. Everyone had vanished. The ancient Yu clan's plan had succeeded. Even though they had fought with everything they had, they were unable to avert this disaster. Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger were the only two living things left in this mainland. Everything in this world had completely vanished. The little white tiger was in Yi Qingtang's arms. It hesitated to speak, but it suddenly sensed Yi Qingtang's arms around it tighten. Warm moisture soaked the fur on its head. Little white tiger raised its head involuntarily and suddenly saw that at some point, 2 lines of tears had begun running down Yi Qingtang's exquisite face. The tears fell noiselessly and sank into little white tiger's smooth fur. This soundless sobbing caused the little white tiger's heart to quiver. In the end, "I could not stop this," Yi Qingtang felt everything before her blur. She raised her head and tried to see more clearly, but her vision became increasingly blurred. She was prepared to give her life to defend this mainland. However, in the end, she survived, but this mainland was completely destroyed. Having lost its living things, this mainland would slowly become desolate as time went by. Yi Qingtang had left this mainland in her previous life and was unaware of this calamity. In this life, she was present but was helpless to stop it. Hot tears fell. The little white tiger clearly sensed the warmth of her tears. It panicked a little as it looked at Yi Qingtang. It had never seen her with this kind of expression before. The little white tiger shook its whiskers and suddenly said, "Don't cry. although this is the worst possible outcome, you can still find little Yu Yun and release all the spiritual energy she absorbed. Yi Qingtang's gaze immediately turned to the little white tiger when it spoke. The little white tiger continued. Everyone on this mainland was absorbed by little Yu Yun. Logically speaking, if little Yu Yun releases their souls, then they will revive, so the situation may not be hopeless. Yi Qingtang's eyes brightened a little. She said thoughtfully, would Hong Heqing and the others be resurrected? Well, they died in battle previously, and had nothing to do with little Yu Yun. It's hard to tell if they will be resurrected. The little white tiger shook its head. But you, how did you come back to life? The little white tiger quickly asked Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang was unsure of how to answer this question. She herself was not sure how she had returned to life, so she was naturally unable to answer the little white tiger. She thought that she was left only with despair. However, the little white tiger's words had given Yi Qingtang a glimmer of hope. If she could just find little Yu Yun, she could release all the living things in this mainland. And then, everyone would return. At that thought, Yi Qingtang suddenly raised her hand and wiped away her tears. She raised the little white tiger and kissed its head. You, woman, what are you doing? The little white tiger was so shocked by this sudden kiss that its fur stood on end. But it glimpsed Yi Qingtang's slight smile from the corner of its eye and slowly stopped worrying. This damn woman looks so pretty. Weeping and wailing do not suit her in the least. Thank you. Yi Qingtang looked smilingly at the little white tiger. Don't thank me. You'll have to depend on your own ability to find little Yu Yun. You've seen the white-robed old man's power. It won't be easy to snatch little Yu Yun from the hands of the ancient Yu clan. The little white tiger grunted as it lifted its front claw and kneaded the part of its head that Yi Qingtang had kissed. Even if it's a chance in a million, I will not give up. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and looked at the blue horizon. Let's go to Central Mainland. Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger swiftly plunged into the clouds and vanished. Everyone must be sure to wait for her. In Central Mainland, on the peak of a tall mountain, Ling Yan was standing at the edge of a cliff with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the layers of clouds and Yi Qingtang's karmic natal chart. As he watched the karmic natal chart transform and take on a new pattern, his lips curved in a slight smile. The little azure dragon was standing next to Ling Yan. It showed no joy as it looked at the smile on Ling Yan's lips. Is it really worth it? Ling Yan smiled and removed the karmic natal chart with a wave of his hand. Yes. The little azure dragon sighed. Now that matters had reached this stage, whatever it said was futile. Yi Qingtang's death tribulation had disappeared, but it had been shifted to Ling Yan. Before the little azure dragon could speak, Ling Yan turned and walked down the mountain. Where are you going? Asked the little azure dragon. Ling Yan's footsteps paused. He spoke laughingly without turning his head. Miss Yi will be arriving in Central Mainland soon. The little azure dragon was silent. It felt that Ling Yan's actions were always unexpected when they had anything to do with Yi Qingtang. So what? The little azure dragon could not help but mutter. Nothing much. I'm just looking forward to it. Ling Yan spoke laughingly. As he finished speaking, he raised his eyes slightly towards the endless horizon. Perhaps they would meet again very soon. Was that not so? The days passed. In prosperous Central Mainland, the grass grew luxuriantly, and birds and beasts gathered in the thick forests. One large and one small figure quietly appeared at the entrance of a gorge. Fuck, the spirit energy in this second largest mainland is really abundant. The little white tiger was following Yi Qingtang. An excited glow flickered in its eyes as it stepped on the springy grass. Yi Qingtang had brought it to Central Mainland 2 days ago. The little white tiger had never been to this mainland before. Now that it was here for the first time, it was truly excited by the air that was saturated with abundant spirit energy. Chapter 12:21 Central Mainland 1 equals Compared to the little white tiger's excitement, Enchanting was indifferent towards the abundant spirit energy in Central Mainland. When she had first come to Central Mainland in her previous life, she had also been taken aback by the abundant spirit energy here. The power of the Central Mainland did not solely depend on its advanced martial culture but was also due to the abundant spirit energy that provided a conducive environment for cultivation. Speaking of which, where are we? The little white tiger looked around the gorge. It did not know whether it was mistaken, but it sensed that Enchanting was fairly familiar with Central Mainland. The moment she stepped into Central Mainland, Enchanting seemed to know where she was going. Gorge of the Dead, Enchanting said blandly. How do you know? The little white tiger asked curiously. But before Enchanting could respond, a clamor suddenly arose from afar. She almost subconsciously caught the little white tiger and hid behind a huge rock with a flying leap. No matter what that noise was, Enchanting was not interested. Just as Enchanting and the little white tiger hid behind the huge rock, several figures a short distance away suddenly flew towards them. One figure was a thin man with a goatee. He was running swiftly, but before he could advance a few miles, several wisps of gray fog suddenly flew towards him from behind and blasted the grass in front of him. A huge pit immediately formed in front of the man, cutting him off. Several black figures suddenly appeared in front of him. Enchanting and the little white tiger, who were hiding behind the huge rock, saw the black figures clearly. They seemed semi-human. Each was wearing a black cape, but beneath the cape, their bodies were not human but white skeletons. The Undead Clan. Enchanting could not help but frown when she saw the skeletons in black capes. The Undead Clan was one of the alien races in Central Mainland. When Enchanting was in Central Mainland previously, she had heard rumors about the Undead Clan. Legend had it that the Undead Clan was not native to Central Mainland but had arrived more than 10,000 years ago. They were violent by nature and loved to kill. They had terrorized Central Mainland thousands of years ago. But a few thousand years ago, the might of the Undead Clan had waned, giving the people in Central Mainland some respite. Further, the most powerful force within the Undead Clan was the Temple of Shadows that controlled the entire Undead Clan. Enchanting's gaze swept across the capes of the undead. She suddenly saw that their capes were embroidered with the symbol of the Temple of Shadows. Enchanting had not expected to encounter undeads from the Temple of Shadows. One must know that in Central Mainland, the Temple of Shadows was everyone's nightmare. Although it had sunk into obscurity nearly 1,000 years ago, their terror had continued to linger. If they discovered her and the little white tiger, they would probably die there. Just as Enchanting was secretly observing this, an undead berated the man with the goatee. "Human, how dare you steal the treasure of the Temple of Shadows? If you wish to live, you must hand over the 9 Souls Ring." Chapter 12:22 Central Mainland 2 The stiff, vague voice sounded very eerie. The man with the goatee turned pale. He had not expected his theft to be discovered. Now that the Undead Clan had its eye on him, he would probably die. He tried to flee without saying another word, but the undead rushed towards him, and they began to fight in midair. When she saw that they were engaged in a fight, Enchanting prepared to seize the opportunity to leave the area. However, at that moment, the man with the goatee was sent flying by the skeletons. He crashed forcefully into the huge rock where Enchanting was hiding. Boom! The huge rock shattered. Enchanting and the little white tiger, who were hiding behind it, were immediately exposed to the Undead Clan. Enchanting was speechless. This was embarrassing. The undead had not expected anyone else to be there, and they were also taken aback. The man with the goatee turned to look at Enchanting. He raised his right hand and stuffed a bundle into Enchanting's hand. He said in a panic, "I can't escape. Quick, take the 9 souls ring and leave. It'll delay these undead clan people." With that, the man with the goatee prepared to fight the undead clan to the death. Anyone who saw this scene would assume that Enchanting was an accomplice of the man and had come to support him. "Fuck, this guy is trying to get us into trouble." The little white tiger glared and scolded him. The man with the goatee clearly had no other choice and was trying to frame them. From what the undead had said earlier, they knew that this man had stolen the 9 souls ring. But now, this bastard had given the 9 souls ring to Enchanting in the presence of these undead clan people. He was probably going to try to seize the opportunity to flee. Even if Enchanting threw the bundle back to the man with the goatee, the undead would assume that she was in cahoots with him. "Just come for me. We're definitely not returning the 9 souls ring to you," the man with the goatee said to the stunned undead with dignity. He looked poised to protect his companions so that they could flee. At that moment, Enchanting wanted to kill him. She had met shameless people before, but not someone as shameless as him. However, since matters had already reached this stage, she had certainly become involved. Enchanting had no choice but to prepare for a fight. However, the undead did not seem to have any intention of attacking. The hollow eye holes in their skulls stared straight at Enchanting until she broke out in goosebumps. Their bones clattered at each other from time to time, as if they were discussing something. The man with the goatee thought that after he threw the object to the girl who had suddenly appeared, the undead would rush forward and try to snatch the 9 souls ring from her. Then, he could seize the opportunity to sneak away. But it turned out that, for some reason, these undead were not moving. After a while, the atmosphere grew strange. Maybe these skeletons are brainless and can't understand what's going on. "Shall we go?" the little white tiger suggested softly. Enchanting naturally did not wish to linger. While the undead were in a state of shock, she turned with the intention of leaving. But the moment Enchanting turned, the undead suddenly moved. With a flying leap, they landed neatly in front of Enchanting. Chapter 12:23 Central Mainland 3 Enchanting subconsciously reached for her sword, but when it was still half drawn, the undead standing before her suddenly bent their knees and simultaneously kneeled before her. Enchanting stared blankly. Do the undead perform this ritual before killing someone? The little white tiger was rather stunned. Were they polite, or just perverted? But just as Enchanting and the little white tiger were feeling bewildered, the undead suddenly raised their heads and opened their skeletal mouths. Distorted voices suddenly issued from their mouths. "Holy Lord! You have finally returned." Their voices even had a sobbing note. Enchanting was speechless. "Holy Lord! What the hell? Holy Lord, you've been gone for so long. We thought you were tired of us. Holy Lord, please don't leave us again. Come back with us." The undead who had seemed so terrifying previously now raised their voices and wailed. If not for the characteristics of their race, they would probably be weeping. "Holy Lord, everyone misses you very much. We even carry your picture with us so that we can pay our respects to you every day." When an undead saw that the Holy Lord before them still did not reply, it decided to show its sincerity by taking a worn-out scroll from its robes and opening it before Enchanting. A stunningly beautiful girl was drawn on the paper. And she looked just like Enchanting. Understanding finally dawned on Enchanting. When she came to Central Mainland in her previous life, she had heard a rumor about the Temple of Shadows. Rumor had it that the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was incomparably powerful. She had led the undead clan in this mainland to the height of their power. But a few thousand years ago, this holy lord had mysteriously vanished. Since then, the powerful Temple of Shadows had declined, and the undead in the entire mainland had lost their power. No one knew why the holy lord of the Temple of Shadows had vanished. In the legends, many rumors surrounded this disappearance. Some said that the holy lord had gone missing, while others said that she had gone into seclusion to cultivate. Now, it looked like the holy lord had gone missing. As she looked just like the holy lord, the undead had taken her for their long-lost holy lord. At that moment, Enchanting finally understood the situation. She also realized that she was in no position to deny the status of the holy lord. The undead she was facing were so powerful that she certainly could not resist them. If she denied that she was the holy lord, it would probably enrage these undead. At that point, Enchanting took a deep breath, put on an aloof look, and looked at the undead. "I have returned." The undead were so moved by their holy lord's reply that they trembled until their skeletons creaked. The man with the goatee who had planned everything was completely taken aback. He had planned to lure the undead away so that he could escape, but had not expected that. This girl was the legendary long-lost holy lord of the Temple of Shadows. The man with the goatee instantly turned pale. He had truly made a grave mistake. The man with the goatee almost subconsciously turned to flee. Chapter 12-24 Temple of Shadows 1 Fuck, are you still trying to flee? The little white tiger immediately noticed the man with the goatee's movement and let out a roar. Enchanting immediately issued orders to the undead. Capture him. Yes. The undead immediately followed orders and flew towards the man with the goatee, who was trying to flee. Before he got more than a few meters away, the undead had caught him by the ankles and dragged him upside down to Enchanting. Holy Lord. Enchanting nodded slightly. After personally witnessing the power of the undead, this was the first time she was thankful for her looks. If not for her looks, she would probably be in the same position as the man with the goatee. Ha! Holy Lord. I have long heard of you. My respect for you is unending. I am truly fortunate to see your glory today. The man with the goatee, who was being held upside down, calmly plied Enchanting with extravagant compliments. Oh. Enchanting raised her brows slightly. This fellow was really good at changing sides. In that case, why don't you hand the 9 souls ring over? Enchanting suddenly said with a smile. Since she was playing the role of the Temple of Shadows Holy Lord, she might as well do it thoroughly. At Enchanting's words, an undead suddenly jogged forward a few steps and picked up the bundle that the man with the goatee had given to Enchanting, which she had thrown on the ground. It respectfully brought it to Enchanting. Although it had a skull, for some reason, Enchanting felt that this undead was looking to take the credit. Holy Lord, the 9 souls ring, said the undead. Enchanting swept a glance at the bundle, then glanced at the undead who was looking for credit. She did not know what to say. The 9 souls ring is not in the bundle, Enchanting said helplessly. The undead was taken aback and immediately opened the bundle. As he watched the undead open the bundle, the man with the goatee covered his eyes in despair. As expected, the bundle was filled with rags and gravel. Only then did the undead realize that it had been tricked by the man with the goatee. It angrily tossed the things aside, and its skeletal hand reached out to choke the man with the goatee. Don't act rashly before the Holy Lord. Another undead immediately shouted. The first undead then realized in alarm that it had gone too far. It kneeled before Enchanting in terror and said, I have offended the Holy Lord in my ignorance. I deserve to die. Please, Holy Lord, punish me with the destruction technique. As their name showed, the undead could live forever. The destruction technique was one of the Dharma spells that could kill the undead. It was pleading to be eternally destroyed just because of a moment of carelessness. Enchanting could not help but feel ashamed in the face of the undead's worshipful attitude towards the Holy Lord. The more they venerated her, the more she was afraid to reveal her true status. If they discovered that she was a fake, they would probably sentence her to death for blaspheming their Holy Lord. Heaven knew that the undead were famous in this mainland for their methods of torture. Enchanting was secretly shocked but did not allow it to show. Instead, she maintained her aloof appearance. Forget it. I declare you innocent. The Holy Lord is merciful. I am filled with gratitude. The undead kowtowed 3 times to Enchanting. Chapter 12:25 Temple of Shadows 2. Enchanting did not know what to say. However, her gaze quickly shifted to the man with the goatee. The 9 souls ring is still on his person. The undead immediately looked at the man with the goatee. Their empty eye sockets seemed to be filled with the intention to kill. Despicable human, how dare you make a fool of us? Kill him. Flay him and we will certainly find the 9 souls ring. The man with the goatee suddenly had a bright idea. He hurriedly smiled at Enchanting and said, "Great Holy Lord, I would never dare to make fools of the esteemed undead clan. I am merely a great admirer of yours. I only wanted to look reverently upon the 9 souls rings that you wore. Since I have seen your esteemed self now, I am content. I will certainly return the 9 souls ring with all due respect." As he spoke, the man with the goatee unhurriedly took an exquisite bangle from his robes. The bangle was exquisite, but she could not tell what material it was made of. It was snow white and beautiful, but eerie carvings could faintly be seen on its surface. An undead took the 9 souls ring and offered it to Enchanting with both hands. Enchanting took the 9 souls ring and realized that the undead were staring at her, as if expecting her to put it on. Enchanting did not wish to create more trouble, so she simply put the 9 souls ring on. Strangely, the 9 souls ring vanished the moment she put it on. She involuntarily reached out to touch her wrist and felt the shape of the 9 souls ring. But when she looked at it, she could not see any trace of it. Was this thing invisible? Enchanting was pleased. Legend had it that the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was incomparably powerful. She could even single-handedly take on 100 powerful cultivators from the second domain. Naturally, the Holy Lord's Dharma treasure would be extraordinary. Had she not been forced to acquire a treasure by chance? Holy Lord, how should we deal with this person? When the undead looked at the 9 souls ring that had vanished on Enchanting's wrist, their tone became even more agitated. Enchanting did not understand why they had suddenly become so agitated. She swept a glance at the man with the goatee. Bring him back. Was this fellow still planning to resist? How his fortunes had changed. The man with the goatee looked despaired. The undead naturally followed Enchanting's orders. Holy Lord, since you have returned, why don't you return to the Holy Temple with us? Everyone is waiting for you. I still have some matters to deal with, Enchanting said blandly. Return to the Temple of Shadows with them. What a joke. Who knew whether her true status would be exposed there? However, when the undead looked as though they had been struck by lightning when they heard Enchanting's words. Holy Lord, please come back with us. The Temple of Shadows cannot do without you, Holy Lord. If you don't return with us, we will follow you. The Temple of Shadows cannot lose you again. The undead pleaded pitifully. They kneeled in front of Enchanting and repeated kowtowed as they begged. Enchanting saw that if she did not return with them, they would insist on following her. They might even send word back to the Temple of Shadows. Then, who knew how many undead would flock over and cause more trouble? Yi Qingtang had intended to increase her personal abilities during this trip to Central Mainland so that she could regain Little Yuyun. She would also take the opportunity to search for news of her mother. If she became entangled with a group of undead from the Temple of Shadows, she would not be able to go anywhere. Chapter 12:26 Temple of Shadows 3 Yi Qingtang had no choice but to nod and say, "All right then, I'll go back with you and take a look." If worse came to worst, she would just guard her words and tread carefully. Once Yi Qingtang gave her word, the undead clambered up joyfully. They brought Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger back to the Temple of Shadows. The man with the goatee was also dragged along with them. The former Temple of Shadows was the highlight of Central Mainland. It was the glory of the undead clan. However, with the disappearance of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows, the temple's power in Central Mainland had collapsed. The glory of the undead clan had also vanished with it. Yi Qingtang had heard many legends about the undead when she visited Central Mainland in her previous life. They were cruel, bloodthirsty, and capricious. They cultivated special dharma spells that made them very difficult to deal with. Central Mainland's academies had classes that specialized in dealing with the undead. However, in her previous life, Yi Qingtang had been busy with her own affairs and did not know much about the undead clan. She had occasionally seen the undead but had not paid much attention to them. Now, she was going to Temple of Shadows, the pride of the undead clan. The Temple of Shadows had declined for the past 1,000 years. They walked through the Valley of the Dead, passed through the Waterfall of the Deceased, and trod through the Swamp of Death. The ancient and mysterious temple stood between two cliffs, built against the wall of the cliff. Before they even stepped into the Temple of Shadows, they could already sense the aura of death that saturated the surroundings. Layers of gray fog shrouded the temple, as if hiding it from the daylight. Even the sunlight was unable to completely pierce through the fog. Although it was day, the surroundings of the Temple of Shadows were as dim as if it was evening. A gigantic skeleton was embedded in the Temple of Shadows. Only the upper half of the skeleton remained, but it was more than 100 meters tall. Its hands were crossed over its chest as if it was silently guarding the land of the undead. Yi Qingtang was carrying the little white tiger in her arms. It looked at the Temple of Shadows as the aura of death lingered in its nostrils, bringing with it a chill. Dozens of skeleton soldiers wearing light armor and carrying long spears stood at the entrance to the Temple of Shadows. In the coiling gray fog, the place looked like a dark cemetery or hell. When the skeleton soldiers heard the sound of footsteps, they turned to look. Their skulls and throat bones rattled together to emit a clattering noise. When the skeleton soldiers saw the undead, they bowed. "Go quickly and inform the guardians and elders that the Holy Lord has returned," an undead said proudly. When the skeleton soldiers heard that, they immediately raised their eyes and looked at Yi Qingtang, who was standing in the middle. They suddenly opened their mouths wide. Their teeth clattered continually as they emitted excited sounds. The noise sounded like eerie knocking that spread into the dark temple wildfire. The noise continued to spread through the deepest parts of the temple. It was as if countless skeletons had received the news and were spreading it by some special method. This was the first time Yi Qingtang had seen the undead use this method to transmit information, and she was intrigued. The next second, an eerie wind suddenly blew from within the pitch-black temple. A black fog came coiling out with the wind and suddenly came to a halt in front of Yi Qingtang. The black fog slowly dissipated, and 5 figures suddenly appeared. Before Yi Qingtang could see the 5 figures clearly, 5 undead fell to their knees and chorused reverently, "We respectfully welcome the Holy Lord back to the temple." Chapter 12:27 Holy Sun 1 At that moment, 5 completely different undead were kneeling before Yi Qingtang. Some were pure skeletons while others were part flesh and part bones like the remains of a body. Some even looked like normal humans. However, all of them carried the faint scent of death. "Holy Lord, you have finally returned." A skeleton in a long golden robe spoke with a quavering voice. It raised its head and fixed its dark eye sockets on Enchanting. Enchanting had no idea who these 5 undead were. So, she assumed a calm demeanor and nodded. "Rise, all of you." The 5 undead got to their feet. Among them was one that looked like a youth. It raised its hands to wipe the unprecedented traces of tears from the corner of its eyes. "Holy Lord, we have waited for you for many years. Please return to the temple," several undead said respectfully. Enchanting raised her eyes and looked at the pitch-black temple. She sighed inwardly and walked in. The moment Enchanting entered, eerie green lights suddenly sprang up along the walls on both sides, lighting up the previously pitch-dark temple. She saw at a glance that the huge temple was held up by 36 black bone pillars. Each bone pillar was crisscrossed with numerous black snake bones. Right at the end of the main hall was a bone throne made of black gold. It suddenly appeared in front of Enchanting. "Holy Lord, please take your seat." In the main hall, many undead turned their empty eye sockets towards Enchanting. Although they had no eyeballs, their expectancy and urgency were apparent. Under the scrutiny of the numerous undead, Enchanting had no choice but to steel herself and step onto the throne of black bone. As Enchanting took her seat, all the undead in the main hall clattered their lower jaws. Their teeth made a crisp clacking noise that filled the entire hall. The scent of death swiftly spread through the hall. The little white tiger crouched on Enchanting's knee. At this sight, it secretly used its claws to grip Enchanting's knees. "No matter what happens, you must remain calm." There were so many undead that just the sight of them was frightening. If Enchanting's true status was exposed, they would never escape. Enchanting nodded silently. However, before Enchanting could recover her wits, a black shadow emerged from the side of the temple and rushed forward, bringing with it the strong scent of blood. This black shadow was extremely fast. Before Enchanting and the little white tiger could ascertain what it was, the black shadow had burrowed into Enchanting's arms, sending the little white tiger, which had been crouching on Enchanting's knee, flying. "Ah Yao! You have finally returned." A soft voice with a trace of tears came from the black shadow. Enchanting finally saw what had burrowed into her arms. It was a dainty little child, standing only as high as her knee. He had an exquisite little face, and his pale and flawless skin had a hint of gray. His large black eyes had no white. They were hollow and black, like a cat that had widened its eyes. Although he looked eerie, he was also adorable. However, the child's clothes seemed to be soaked in blood. Fresh blood dripped from his robes and fell at the foot of the throne of black bone. Enchanting stared at him blankly. What the hell? Chapter 12:28 Holy Sun 2 Enchanting looked in astonishment at the blood-stained child. She suddenly recalled a rumor about the Temple of Shadows that she had heard in her previous life. Legend had it that at the peak of its power, the Temple of Shadows was not only held by the Holy Lord, but she also had at her command a mutant undead. His power was only slightly inferior to that of the Holy Lord. He was the Holy Son of the Temple of Shadows. If she guessed correctly, this blood-stained child was the legendary mutant undead, the Holy Son of the Temple of Shadows. Ah Yao! How could you be so cruel to abandon me and vanish for so many years? The child saw that Enchanting still did not reply. His exquisite face was aggrieved as if he was about to burst into tears at any moment. When Enchanting saw the child before her, she truly felt like weeping but had no tears. Legend had it that the Holy Son was capricious and was extremely bloodthirsty. Because he was a mutant, he never grew up and remained like a child. However, His reputation for cruelty and viciousness far exceeded that of any undead. Enchanting did not dare to allow this bloodthirsty little fellow to discover that she was an impostor. She had no choice but to pretend to be troubled and keep her mouth shut. When the child saw that Enchanting was not going to respond, his childish face suddenly changed. A warped murderous intent suddenly spread across his face. He suddenly turned, looked at the numerous undead in the hall, and spoke. "Ah, you must be displeased because of the despicable worm who besmirched her 9 souls ring. Where is the human?" The numerous undead trembled under the child's cold look. They hurriedly dragged the man with the goatee, whom they had captured earlier, into the main hall. When he saw that the criminal had been caught, the child turned to look at Enchanting. But the moment he turned, the chilling murderous intent on his face instantly turned into an expression of grievance and unease. "Ah, Yao, don't be angry. It's all my fault for not guarding your things carefully. Don't worry, I'll kill this worm who besmirched your 9 souls ring." Before Enchanting could open her mouth, the child suddenly transformed into a black demonic wind that pounced on the man with the goatee. The man with the goatee turned dead white when he saw the child bare his sharp teeth. He said in fright, "Holy Son, have mercy. I have never thought of besmirching the Holy Lord's Dharma treasure. I just admired the Holy Lord too much. Is a lowly worm such as you fit to admire, Yao?" The child suddenly reached out with his blood-stained little hand. The hand instantly transformed into a bare bone and gripped the skull of the man. "You have besmirched Yao's things. I won't let you die so easily. I will carve your name on the stone of nightmares so that you can never be reincarnated." A red light suddenly flickered in the child's eyes as he looked straight at the man with the goatee. For a moment, it was as if the man with the goatee was transfixed. He sat motionlessly on the ground, his eyes distant and fearless. "Tell me your name," the child ordered coldly. "Moo. Moo, sure," the man with the goatee said dully. However, the moment the man with the goatee spoke, a strange look flashed across Enchanting's eyes. "He is Musher." During her time in Central Mainland in her previous life, Enchanting had heard of Musher. Musher was from the Eternal Dynasty and was one of the teachers in the Eternal Academy. He was unaccomplished, and no one noticed him, but... Chapter 12:29 Holy Sun 3 Musher had vanished many years before Enchanting arrived at the Central Mainland in her previous life. It was only then that people discovered Musher's other identity. Besides being a teacher in the Eternal Academy, Musher had another identity. He was a famous thief in Central Mainland. Legend had it that there was nothing that he could not steal. Enchanting had not intended to concern herself with this fellow who had tried to get her into trouble, but now she changed her mind. "Hold on." Just as the child was about to crush Musher's skull, Enchanting suddenly spoke. "Ah, Yao." The vicious look on the child's face disappeared, and he looked at Enchanting with delight. "Ah, Yao, are you finally willing to speak to me?" The child's face was filled with joy. He immediately flung Musher aside and flew into Enchanting's arms. "Ah, Yao, next time you must not ignore me. I know I should not have broken your rules previously. In the future, I will definitely obey you. If you forbid me to kill wantonly, I won't kill anymore. Look. I don't use human blood anymore. All this is deer blood." The child crouched on Enchanting's knee and raised his head. He looked at Enchanting as if he was about to cry. He seemed desperately afraid that Enchanting would not believe him, so he waved his small, blood-stained hands under Enchanting's nose. Enchanting looked at this mercurial little child. She did not know what to say. At that moment, a figure slowly walked over. It was a handsome man dressed in white. He leisurely walked over to the throne and bowed to Enchanting. "Your servant, Xuefu, was too late to receive you. Holy Lord, please forgive me. Then Shuefu said, Holy Lord, Holy Sun is speaking the truth. The Holy Lord was previously displeased because the Holy Sun slaughtered humans and refused to speak to the Holy Sun. However, after the Holy Lord left, the Holy Sun became more restrained. Holy Sun had not left the temple in all these years and has quietly guarded your treasure trove. He has not killed anyone. Ah Yao, did you hear what Shuefu said? I've really been very good. The child looked at Yi Qingtang pleadingly. Yi Qingtang finally understood. Before the Holy Lord left earlier, she had not spoken to the Holy Sun. That was why the Holy Sun had reacted so violently to her refusal to speak just now. But Yi Qingtang had heard of this undead named Shuefu in her previous life. He was one of the two guardians of the Temple of Shadows. The undead were naturally fleshless. But if their cultivation reached a high level, they could create an illusion of a body of flesh. Then, they looked just like a human. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. Just one word was sufficient to make the child's eyes shine brightly. I still need this person. Let him live for a while. Yi Qingtang changed the subject and pointed out why she had spoken just now. Let him live. The child was taken aback. When he looked at Mu Shi, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. But, Yao, he besmirched your things. He is not fit to live in this world. Yi Qingtang secretly took a deep breath. Her face became a little colder. So you are still unwilling to listen to me? Forget it, since that is the case, I'll go. With that, Yi Qingtang made it as she was to arise. When the child saw that Yi Qingtang was about to leave again, he panicked. He burst into tears and clung on to Yi Qingtang's leg. Chapter 12:30 How did I put this on? 1 Yao. I know I was wrong. I'll listen to you, I'll listen to you. If you want to keep him alive, well, keep him alive. I'll obey you as long as you don't leave. Yi Qingtang inwardly heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the child who was plastered to her kneel. She had been merely probing and was also looking for an excuse to leave the Temple of Shadows. But it turned out that the notoriously savage Holy Sun could not bear to be apart from the Holy Lord. Men, throw this smelly worm into the dungeon. The child turned and ordered. Now, Yi Qingtang could not leave even if she wanted to. She had no choice but to keep the situation as it was for the time being. Ah Yao, don't be angry. You've been away for so long, so you must be tired. Go and rest. The child spoke gingerly, seemingly terrified that Yi Qingtang would leave. Although Yi Qingtang maintained an expressionless face, she was emotionally exhausted. Heaven knew how much mental energy she had exhausted to put on a show in the Temple of Shadows, which had previously reigned supreme in Central Mainland. Yi Qingtang nodded. The child only slowly released Yi Qingtang when he saw that she had agreed. Yi Qingtang stretched out her hand and picked up the little white tiger, who had been knocked aside, and cuddled it. When the child saw that little white tiger was in Yi Qingtang's arms, his expression immediately turned murderous. The little white tiger was alarmed by his glare. Fuck, this little devil looks terrifying. I will escort the Holy Lord for a rest. Holy Lord's sleeping chambers have been cleaned every day in anticipation of the Holy Lord's return, said Shuefu. Yi Qingtang nodded and walked towards her sleeping chambers with Shuefu in the lead. As Yi Qingtang walked, the child's guarded expression immediately transformed. He turned to look at all the undead in the main hall with a vicious and cruel expression. Now that Yao is back, if I find out that anyone has made her unhappy, a black flame suddenly burned in the child's hand. As his fist closed, the black smoke instantly exploded. The undead were all silent and nodded repeatedly. The Holy Lord was the supreme symbol of the Temple of Shadows, but it was the capricious and murderous Holy Sun that everyone feared. Enchanting quickly arrived at the Holy Lord's sleeping chambers. When she entered, it was as if she had suddenly returned to normal human dwellings. The sleeping chamber was brightly lit with many lamps. Everything was clean and white. The entire atmosphere was completely incongruous compared to the dim Temple of Shadows. One wall of the sleeping chamber was hung with many portraits. The portraits all looked similar yet different. From emaciated to plump, the features of the person in the portrait had changed slowly from ugly and peculiar to beautiful. In the last portrait, the person looked exactly like Enchanting. These must be the portraits of how the Holy Lord of Shadows slowly transformed from an undead to a human. Enchanting slowly relaxed. Fuck, this Temple of Shadows is really terrifying. Did you see the last look that little devil shot at me? It was as if he wanted to skin me alive there and then. I think we better leave at the first opportunity. If your identity is revealed, we will both die here. The little white tiger hopped out of Enchanting's arms. The capricious Holy Sun's power was probably in the heavenly venerate realm, not to mention the guardians and elders of the Temple of Shadows. Chapter 1231 How did I put this on? 2. With that kind of power, all they had to do was twitch their fingers, and both of them would be crushed. Do you think that I don't want to leave? Enchanting heaved a wordless sigh. When she was in the main hall just now, she had felt as if she was sitting on a carpet of pins. How she longed to escape from this place. Just as Enchanting was fretting, some noise suddenly came from her voice transmission stone. Miss Yi. Ling Yan's laughing voice slowly came from the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan. Enchanting was slightly taken aback. Ling Yan had not contacted her for a long time. Miss Yi, are you getting used to the central mainland? Ling Yan's voice held a trace of amusement. You knew that I'm back? Asked Enchanting. I have always been concerned about Miss Yi's affairs. Enchanting remained silent. But then she thought of something and said, Ling Yan, what do you know about the Temple of Shadows? Temple of Shadows. Why is Miss Yi suddenly asking about the Temple of Shadows? Thousands of years ago, the Temple of Shadows represented the height of the undead's power. But in the last few thousand years, it has sunk into obscurity. Rumor has it that their Holy Lord suddenly vanished, so they began to withdraw their influence. Even so, the Temple of Shadows has long been a very dangerous place, said Ling Yan. What if I told you that I am now in the Temple of Shadows, said Enchanting. Silence fell on the other end of the voice transmission stone. Enchanting knew that Ling Yan was intelligent, so she told him how she had been mistakenly brought to the Temple of Shadows and posed as the Holy Lord. She hoped that Ling Yan would have some way to help her escape. However, quiet laughter came from the voice transmission stone. Enchanting's brows immediately wrinkled. You're still in the mood for laughter. If I'm discovered, who knows how I'll die. Ling Yan burst into laughter again, but just as Enchanting was so infuriated that she wanted to turn off the voice transmission stone, he said, Miss Yi does not need to worry. Since the undead of the Temple of Shadows think you're their Holy Lord and since you look just like the Holy Lord, all you have to do is to temporarily maintain the status quo. There is no need to worry about anything else. He said it so casually. Enchanting was speechless. But if Miss Yi is truly worried, then she can just leave. Considering how much the undead of the Temple of Shadows respects the Holy Lord, they will not make things difficult for Miss Yi. But Miss Yi had better not reveal her identity, said Ling Yan. Of course I will not reveal my identity. Enchanting sighed again. As if she would dare to do that. Since Miss Yi is now connected to the Temple of Shadows, she can make use of that. Although the Temple of Shadows is not as powerful as it once was, it is not to be underestimated. The Holy Son, Minggu, is a mutant undead. He is extremely powerful and is absolutely loyal to the Holy Lord. If Miss Yi uses this opportunity well, perhaps it will help Miss Yi attain her own goals, said Ling Yan. Her own goals. Yi Qingtang sank into deep thought. So Ling Yan had guessed the reason behind her coming to Central Mainland. The empty mainland surfaced in her mind, completely quiet and desolate. The ancient Yu clan was so powerful. Although she intended to snatch little Yu Yun from them, it would naturally be good if she could obtain more help. She did not yet know if the Temple of Shadows would be a blessing or a curse. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows is not only powerful but also has many Dharma treasures. Miss Yi can borrow a few of them. Ling Yan continued. Chapter 1232, How did I put this on? 3. Yi Qingtang sighed. If she could properly grasp the opportunity that the Temple of Shadows presented, of course that would be the best. But now, she did not dare to grasp it. Just remaining undetected was a problem. I will take note of that, Yi Qingtang said. Miss Yi does not need to worry. Anytime you are troubled, I am always willing to lend a listening ear. Ling Yan's laughing voice rang out again. Yi Qingtang wanted to say a few more words, but there was a sudden knocking on the door of her sleeping chambers. Yi Qingtang immediately turned off the voice transmission stone and opened the door. An undead was standing outside the door, holding an intricate gold-gilded black box. When it saw Yi Qingtang, it immediately bowed. Holy Lord, the Holy Son ordered me to bring all the Dharma artifacts to the Holy Lord. Yi Qingtang took the box and nodded slightly. The undead spoke again. Holy Lord, please rest assured that other than the incident with the 9 souls ring, no one has touched the Holy Lord's things. It doesn't matter, replied Yi Qingtang. The undead was slightly taken aback and then immediately responded. I have said too much. After all, only the Holy Lord herself can use her Dharma artifacts. Even if someone else obtained them, they would be useless. I should not have spoken out of turn. I will now go and accept my punishment. Before Yi Qingtang could speak, the undead covered its face and ran off to accept its punishment. Why are these undead all volunteering for punishment like masochists? The little white tiger poked its head out and muttered as it watched the disappearing figure. But Yi Qingtang stood there in a daze. Only the Holy Lord could use her things. What did it mean? She almost subconsciously turned on the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan, is it true that only the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows can use her Dharma artifacts? That is what the rumors say, replied Ling Yan. Then why did you ask me to borrow them? Yi Qingtang murmured. A laugh came from the other end of the voice transmission stone. That's what the rumors say, but since it is you, Miss Yi, I think you can use them. What does that mean? Yi Qingtang vaguely sensed that Ling Yan's words had a deeper meaning. But this time, Ling Yan did not reply. After waiting for a moment, Yi Qingtang realized that Ling Yan had turned off his voice transmission stone. Perhaps something had happened on his side. Yi Qingtang carried the gold-gilded black box and sat wordlessly on a chair. She wanted to open the box but realized that the black box was locked and could only be opened by an incantation. The incantation was carved on the outside of the black box, but it was in the language of the undead clan. Yi Qingtang could not read a single word. Forget it, even if I opened it, I probably can't use it. Yi Qingtang set the gold-gilded black box aside. But the little white tiger walked around the black box, then suddenly jumped into Yi Qingtang's lap. It stared at Yi Qingtang's face. Yi Qingtang was puzzled by the little white tiger's stare. But the little white tiger said, no one else can use the Holy Lord's Dharma artifacts? Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. The little white tiger's gaze suddenly fell on Yi Qingtang's wrist. Then how did you put the 9 souls rings on previously? Enchanting was startled. At that moment, she remembered that she had previously put on the 9 souls rings as the undead looked on. Enchanting subconsciously felt her wrist. She could clearly feel the shape of the 9 souls rings. How had she put it on? Chapter 1233, Doubts. 1. Just as Enchanting and the little white tiger were puzzling over the matter, in the Temple of Shadows, Holy Sun Minggu was looking extremely pleased. He returned to his room and tidied up his things. He looked at some small bones that had been painted gold and reached out his small hand to pick them up. Minggu, what are you doing? The guardian, Shuefu, was leaning on the door with his hands crossed over his chest, watching Minggu as he bustled around. Minggu did not even raise his head but continued to focus on picking the small, golden bones. He said, I want to string a necklace for Ah Yao. Shuefu wiped his forehead and shook his head laughingly. String your necklace later. Holy Sun Mingwang has returned to the temple. The moment Shuefu spoke, Minggu immediately raised his head and looked at Shuefu with his dark eyes. Elder brother has returned very quickly. I only just sent the news to him, and he's back already. With that, Minggu put away his things and ran to the main hall. The main hall currently felt rather constrained. A petite, exquisite-looking child wearing black and gold armor was standing in the center of the main hall. His exquisite little face was identical to Minggu's face. However, this child was surrounded by an evil aura. Several peculiar-looking figures quietly stood next to the child. The Temple of Shadows was the glory of the clan of the undead, and the Holy Lord was a powerful figure from the skeleton tribe within the clan of the undead. When the Holy Lord previously led everyone from the second domain to the central mainland, the skeleton tribe was not the only tribe in the clan of the undead to come along. The clan of the undead was divided into many different tribes. The Holy Lord and the powerful figures of the other tribes had led their tribes here together. Now, these powerful figures from the different tribes were tribe leaders in the central mainland. At the moment, the undead standing next to the child were some of these tribe leaders. Ming Wang, is your news accurate? Has the Holy Lord really returned? Spoke a burly man who looked as vicious as a devil and stood more than 3 meters tall. Within the undead clan, he was the leader of the demon tribe. He turned his huge head to look at Ming Wang, who was only the size of his palm. Minggu sent the news. Ming Wang spoke calmly. His eyes were completely cold. The various tribe leaders exchanged a look but did not say anything else. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was a powerful figure of the skeleton tribe. Although the members of the main tribes of the clan of the undead gathered in the Temple of Shadows, in the past, the power of the Holy Lord had elevated the entire skeleton tribe's status in the Temple of Shadows. But, the Holy Lord had vanished a long time ago. Outsiders only knew that within the Temple of Shadows, the Holy Sun was renowned for his cruelty. But they did not know that the Temple of Shadows had 2 holy suns. One was Minggu, the other was Ming Wang. If one said that Minggu was only cruel sometimes and childish at other times, then Ming Wang was only cruel. Ming Wang had been discussing some matters with these tribe leaders when he received news from his younger brother, Minggu, that the Holy Lord had returned to the temple. When the tribe leaders with Ming Wang heard the news, some of them were curious and had tagged along. After a moment, Minggu rushed in. Elder brother, you're back. Ah Yao. Ah Yao has really returned, Minggu said excitedly when he saw Ming Wang. Chapter 1234, Doubts. 2. However, Ming Wang remained expressionless as he looked at his younger brother's agitated face. I know. Where is she? Ming Wang said expressionlessly. Resting in her sleeping chambers. Elder brother, I'm so happy that Ah Yao is really back, Minggu was in a rush to share his joy with Ming Wang. But before he could finish speaking, Ming Wang swept a cold look at him. Minggu's remaining words stuck in his throat. Minggu. Ming Wang raised his head slightly and narrowed his black eyes, which swept across his younger brother's face. You are too noisy. Minggu was stunned. When he saw the chill in Ming Wang's eyes, he subconsciously shrank back. The undead had no twins. But he and Ming Wang were a rare pair of twins and were also mutant undead. They were born with immense abilities, but compared to Ming Wang, he was much weaker. Minggu held a bone-deep reverence for his elder brother. How do you know that she is Ah Yao? Ming Wang asked coldly. Minggu was slightly taken aback. Ah Yao is Ah Yao, of course I know, idiot. Ming Wang grunted coldly. Since the Holy Lord is back, we should follow the rules of the Temple of Shadows. Ming Wang did not look at his younger brother again. He turned to a slender girl with an enchanting face, who was standing next to him. Guardian of Ghosts, go and make your preparations and invite the Holy Lord to the Hall of Gloom. Meanwhile, Enchanting was still discussing the matter of the 9 souls rings with the little white tiger. Not long after, someone knocked on the room door. Enchanting had no choice but to put aside her bewilderment and open the door. The door opened to reveal a scantily clad and enchanting-looking girl lounging against the door. When she suddenly saw Enchanting at the doorway, a look of surprise flashed across her green eyes. But the surprise instantly vanished, and she smiled charmingly at Enchanting and spoke. Your subordinate, Lady Ghost, greets the Holy Lord. The Holy Lord's return is a joyful event. Please, Holy Lord, come to the Hall of Gloom. Hall of Gloom. Enchanting looked at Lady Ghost standing before her. An ominous foreboding rose in her heart, but she maintained her composure and nodded slightly. With the little white tiger in tow, Enchanting walked with Lady Ghost to the Hall of Gloom. Along the way, she thought about what she was soon to encounter. The Hall of Gloom was where ceremonies were carried out in the Temple of Shadows and was hundreds of meters underground. After a long walk, Enchanting finally came to a broad space. It was a grand hall, so large that its end could not be seen at a glance. When she raised her head, she could not even see the hall ceiling. At first glance, it looked like a public square bathed in darkness. A huge picture of a skeleton was carved in the center of the Hall of Gloom. Around it were circular pictures in which black, glittering gems were embedded. Only a green flame lit the Hall of Gloom. It was both dim and oppressive. Minggu and the other tribe leaders who were already in the Hall of Gloom looked at Enchanting as she walked over slowly. Their first glance shocked them. The girl in front of them looked exactly like their long-lost Holy Lord. Is this girl really the Holy Lord? The leader of the demon tribe looked at Enchanting and lowered his voice to whisper to the leader of the goblin tribe, who was standing next to him. Chapter 1235, Doubts 3. The leader of the goblin tribe was a slender man. He was extremely handsome but a little effeminate. He secretly studied Enchanting and said softly, "The Holy Lord vanished a long time ago. No one knows why she vanished and where she has been all this time. I heard that those who first met the Holy Lord this time only coincidentally found her along the way. I think it's rather peculiar. Could it be that this Holy Lord is an impostor?" The leader of the demon tribe asked. "We don't know yet. But Ming Wang must also be suspicious of her identity, which is why he is carrying out this ceremony. We can just wait and see." The leader of the goblin tribe laughed softly. A sharp look suddenly flashed across his eyes. "If she is fake, she will certainly die," the leader of the demon tribe said with a cold laugh. At that moment, Enchanting had just stepped into the dim hall. She vaguely sensed that something was amiss, and the ominous foreboding in her heart grew stronger. She tried her best to maintain her composure. Her gaze swept across all the undead present. Among the numerous undead, Enchanting saw a few figures with powerful breaths. They looked extremely peculiar. Their appearance and breaths clearly showed that they were different from Xuefu and the skeleton tribe she had met earlier. In her previous life, Enchanting had heard many things about the undead. Naturally, she also knew that the clan of the undead was divided into many tribes. When she saw the breaths and auras of these undead, she thought that they were probably the various legendary tribe leaders within the clan of the undead. Besides these tribe leaders, Enchanting also saw two little fellows who looked exactly alike. They were standing right in front of her. Although they were identical, the two children gave off different airs. Enchanting was stunned. Ah Yao, the moment Minggu saw Enchanting, he charmingly reached out to ask for a hug. But before he could take a step, the expressionless Ming Wang, who was standing next to him, held him back. Ming Wang raised his eyes slightly. His calm black eyes looked straight at Enchanting. His sharp gaze was clearly searching. Enchanting kept her face still and met his gaze directly. Although she was inwardly shocked, how Ming Wang acted towards Minggu clearly showed that the former constrained the latter. In the entire Temple of Shadows, there must be only a few who were imposing enough to dare to act like that towards the Holy Sun, Minggu. Furthermore, these children were identical, twins were rare in the clan of the undead. Even when they appeared, they were certainly mutant undead. Rumor had it that the Holy Son of the Temple of Shadows was a rare mutant undead. However, when twins were born in the clan of the undead, ultimately, only one could survive. Hence, everyone naturally assumed that the other child must have died long ago. But now, Enchanting realized that the rumors that had reached the outside world were probably wrong. The child who looked just like Minggu must be Minggu's brother. However, although they were brothers, the children were like chalk and cheese. We greet the Holy Lord. The tribe leaders now went forward and gave shallow bows to Enchanting. Enchanting nodded slightly, but she was inwardly on full alert. Ming Wang, who was standing nearby, spoke coldly. Holy Lord, please ascend the tower. Ascend the tower. Enchanting was dumbfounded. She looked around with the corner of her eyes, but she was surrounded by flat ground. Where was the tower? Enchanting did not make any move. All the undead present were staring at her. Chapter 1236, Pagoda of the Dead, 1. At that moment, Enchanting almost collapsed emotionally. Legends of the Temple of Shadows usually described its power and mystery but had never recorded what it was like inside. Come to think of it, no outsider would know about these matters. Now, Enchanting was at her wit's end. Just as Enchanting was about to secretly search for the location of the pagoda, Ling Yan's voice suddenly rang out. At that moment, Ling Yan's voice was extremely soft, and only Enchanting could hear it. Miss Yi, don't move. Ling Yan. When Enchanting heard Ling Yan's voice, it was as if heavenly music sounded in her ears. However, she was in the Hall of Gloom, and all the undead had their eyes fixed on her, so she could not show the slightest sign that something unusual was happening and could not reply. At that moment, Enchanting could only follow Ling Yan's instructions and remain expressionlessly in her original spot. She looked at Ming Wang. Ming Wang had been secretly studying Enchanting's movements. After a moment, Ming Wang suddenly shouted coldly. How dare you! This low shout so frightened Enchanting that she broke out in a cold sweat. At Ming Wang's shout, an undead kneeled down in a panic. I deserve to die. How can there be any delay during a ritual? You can't even get a small thing right. Ming Wang's gaze suddenly fell on the kneeling undead. His small gray hand opened suddenly. The next moment, his fingers suddenly arched. The undead kneeling on the ground was instantly crushed by an invisible force. Its entire body transformed into a pile of ashes before their eyes. Enchanting was shocked. One must know that the undead who had just died had the power of arcane supremacy, fifth heaven. Even she was no match for him. But Ming Wang had crushed such a powerful figure into powder without even touching him. This Ming Wang was truly terrible. The Holy Lord's return is a joyous occasion. There is no need to spoil the mood over such a small matter. Let me, Lady Ghost, activate the Pagoda of the Dead for the Holy Lord, said Lady Ghost. With that, she leaped up and suddenly took down one of the lamps that were hanging everywhere. The moment she took down the lamp, the ground in front of the Hall of Gloom began to shake. With a mighty quake, black fumes of death suddenly spurted out from the huge skeleton's mouth that was carved on the ground. The endless fumes of death entwined to form a mirage of the Tower of the Dead. An altar suddenly appeared at the top of the pagoda. Holy Lord, please ascend the pagoda. Lady Ghost descended to the ground and bowed to Enchanting. Enchanting looked at the unreal, almost partially transparent pagoda of the dead. Her heart beat like a drum. How was she supposed to step into a pagoda that seemed to be made of smoke and mist? However, given the circumstances, she had no choice but to steel herself and ascend the pagoda. Enchanting secretly took a deep breath and walked step by step towards the pagoda of the dead. But she could clearly sense numerous eyes behind her, watching her every move. Enchanting stepped into the pagoda of the dead. Although it looked unreal, it felt solid. Enchanting had no choice but to continue upwards. Enchanting could clearly sense that Ming Wang and the tribe leaders did not believe that she was the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. This was probably a test of her identity. At that moment, Ling Yan's voice rang out again. Miss Yi, how much do you know about the Holy Lord of Shadows? Chapter 1237, Pagoda of the Dead, 2. I've heard a little, Enchanting said softly as she gingerly walked across the Pagoda of the Dead. The Holy Lord of Shadows was supremely powerful in Central Mainland. She commanded millions of undead, and all the clans in the mainland bowed to her. Miss Yi, if you want the undead of the Temple of Shadows to believe that you are the Holy Lord, you need to imitate her attitude and behavior. The Holy Lord of Shadows is not as easygoing a mistress as Miss Yi. I am now in the Pagoda of the Dead. What am I supposed to do? Enchanting vaguely understood Ling Yan's meaning, but it did not apply to her current situation. The Pagoda of the Dead is a sacred pagoda in the Temple of Shadows. Millions of souls are gathered within it. Every so often, the Holy Lord of Shadows needs to release some of these twisted souls and pray for blessings for the entire clan of the undead. Miss Yi only needs to walk to the top of the pagoda and sing the incantation of the undead at the altar, said Ling Yan. What incantation? The nearer she got to the top of the pagoda, the more Enchanting felt worried. Ling Yan was quiet for a moment. Then, he sang an obscure incantation of the undead. Enchanting had never come across this incantation of the undead. Even with Ling Yan smoothly singing it in her ear, it sounded very foreign. However, she had already arrived at the top of the Pagoda of the Dead and was standing next to the altar. At the bottom of the Pagoda of the Dead, Ming Wang and the other tribe leaders were closely following Enchanting's every move. With Ling Yan continually repeating the incantation, Enchanting finally memorized some of it. She somewhat awkwardly imitated the incantation that Ling Yan had spoken and sang the incantation of release. As Enchanting sang, numerous black shadows suddenly poured out of the altar. The black shadows wailed continually. They coiled upwards as if they were enclosed in a whirlwind and rose towards the ceiling of the Hall of Gloom. The wailing of the souls reverberated through the entire hall. However, at that moment, Ming Wang's eyes narrowed slightly. Something was amiss. As millions of souls were released, their wails echoed in his ears for a long time before slowly dissipating. The souls seemed to vanish in the darkness. "Miss Yi, you can go down now." With that, Yi Qingtang climbed down the pagoda of the dead. Ming Wang was expressionless. His gaze swept across Yi Qingtang's face, and he said, "Holy Lord, you must be tired after we have troubled you to conduct the ritual today." Yi Qingtang felt as if she had just had a brush with death. If not for Ling Yan, she would have been completely exposed. After the ritual ended, Yi Qingtang went back to her sleeping chambers. As Yi Qingtang left, many undead also left the Hall of Gloom. Only the tribe leaders, elders, guardians, Minggu, and Ming Wang remained behind. "This Holy Lord is probably an impostor." The leader of the goblin tribe swept a look at all the undead present as he spoke. The leader of the demon tribe also frowned. "I think she is most likely a fake." When she sang the incantation just now, it was clearly different from how she sang it previously. They felt that the Holy Lord's sudden return was suspicious. Now, although Yi Qingtang had followed the rituals and completed them in a satisfactory manner, there were many differences compared to how the Holy Lord had completed the rituals in the past. "I remember that the Holy Lord used to fly to the top of the pagoda. This is the first time I have seen her walk up step by step," Lady Ghost said with a soft laugh. The incantation was also rather jerky. It was completely unlike the Holy Lord's cold and arrogant air, the leader of the demon tribe said with a frown. Chapter 1238, Pagoda of the Dead, 3, Don't talk nonsense, she is Ah Yao. Minggu panicked when he saw that everyone was beginning to doubt Yi Qingtang's identity. Only senior members of Clan of the Undead know the incantation of blessing. If she is an impostor, how would she know it? There were a few elders in the Clan of the Undead who have left the Temple of Shadows. "It is possible that they leaked it," said the leader of the Goblin tribe. "I don't think so. The Holy Lord has been gone for so long." Without the Pagoda of the Dead, she naturally had no need to sing the incantation of blessing. It is natural that the recitation was a little choppy. Also, no one knows what the Holy Lord has experienced during this long interval. It is normal for habits to change. Xue Fu agreed. "Change? Aren't these changes too big? Since when has the Holy Lord been so affable?" The leader of the demon tribe grunted coldly. "I already said that she might have had some encounter that caused her personality to change. Why won't you listen?" The panic on Minggu's face instantly turned murderous. "Ah Yao has already put on the 9 souls rings, how can she be a fake? In this world, who but Ah Yao herself can wear her Dharma artifacts?" The tribe leaders were all stunned by Minggu's words. They immediately looked at Ming Wang. "Ming Wang, what do you think?" Ming Wang had remained silent up to that point. At that moment, he raised his head slightly. His black eyes were narrowed slightly and had an icy look. "We have ample time. We will eventually find out if she is authentic or not." Minggu was shocked when he saw Ming Wang's icy expression. "Elder brother," Ming Wang swept a cold look at him. "Shut up, you idiot. If she is really Ah Yao, I certainly will not hurt her. If she isn't, I will make sure she begs for death." Minggu bit his lips. He looked at his elder brother who was filled with murderous intent and forced his fear down. He argued. "But the 9 souls ring, how can you prove that the 9 souls ring is real?" Ming Wang looked at Minggu coldly. "That's right. The 9 souls ring was stolen, and we only encountered the Holy Lord while in pursuit of the ring. In that interval, the 9 souls ring was with that human. If someone is pretending to the Holy Lord, then she must be in cahoots with that human to secretly swap the ring and confuse us," Lady Ghost said. Minggu glared at Lady Ghost furiously. All this is just our conjecture. We cannot be certain of anything. If she is an impostor, then it won't matter. But if she is really the Holy Lord and we offend her, we will be guilty of a terrible crime. Xue Fu spoke carefully when he saw that Ming Wai and the tribe leaders did not believe in Yi Qingtang's identity. With that, silence fell in the Hall of Gloom. It was just this worry that prevented them from acting hastily. It was no joking matter to offend the Holy Lord. I will investigate this matter, Ming Wang said calmly. With Ming Wang on the job, we don't need to worry. The tribe leaders nodded and left successively. However, they all had some suspicions of this holy lady who had suddenly returned. Only Minggu was unwavering in his faith. Meanwhile, Ling Yan was rubbing the voice transmission stone in his hand. A faint smile lurked in the corners of his mouth. When the little azure dragon saw Ling Yan's expression, it secretly sneered. Honestly, was it your plan for Yi Qingtang to go to the Temple of Shadows? It was already part of your plan, wasn't it? Said the little azure dragon. Chapter 1239, Authentic or Fake, 1, Ling Yan chuckled. It will be very difficult for Miss Yi to single-handedly take on the ancient Yu clan. So this was all part of your plan. The little azure dragon widened its eyes slightly. Ling Yan was truly brilliant to be able to manipulate people so precisely from 1,000 miles away. Ling Yan laughed but did not reply. In the Temple of Shadows, Yi Qingtang had returned to her sleeping chambers. But the moment she recalled the events of the Hall of Gloom, she felt terrified again. If Ling Yan had not known the incantation of blessing, Yi Qingtang would have been exposed there and then. When she thought about it, Yi Qingtang could not help but take out the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan. Yes, I'm here. Ling Yan's rather indolent voice rang out from the voice transmission stone. Thank you, said Yi Qingtang. Ling Yan chuckled. If Miss Yi really wants to thank me, why not marry me? Yi Qingtang was just beginning to feel a little touched, but Ling Yan's words immediately dispelled her emotions. Marry him. As if. Miss Yi has merely lulled the suspicions of Ming Wang and the tribe leaders. But in order to completely dispel their suspicions, Miss Yi needs to begin imitating some of the Holy Lord's behavior in the Temple of Shadows. Ling Yan changed the subject. Yi Qingtang grew serious. I don't know much about the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. Miss Yi only needs to listen to me. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows is unpredictable. She usually shows a smiling face to everyone. Ling Yan slowly introduced Yi Qingtang to some of the behaviors of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows used to be supremely powerful in this mainland. Although she had the appearance of a slender girl, no one dared to offend her in the least. What was most terrifying about the Holy Lord was her capricious nature. Although she was always smiling, she killed without blinking an eye. Even when she was attacked by powerful figures from the second domain, she had chatted and laughed while carrying out a bloody slaughter. Many secretly called her the smiling god of death. As Yi Qingtang carefully listened to Ling Yan's synopsis, she got the general idea. After speaking to Ling Yan for a while, the two broke off their connection. In just one short day, Yi Qingtang had experienced a severe shock. In a powerful place like the Temple of Shadows, a single slip would lead to death. What was even more frightening was that Ming Wai and the tribe leaders had begun to suspect her. One misstep and she was dead. If possible, Yi Qingtang wished to escape as quickly as possible. But given the present circumstances, she was unable to leave. She had no choice but to slowly dispel their doubts to save herself. In the Temple of Shadows, Ming Wang was standing in the empty main hall, looking at the black bone throne. His face was expressionless. In the gloom, an image seemed to appear on the black bone throne. Ming Wang's expression flickered. there was a sound of soft footsteps. Ming Wang suddenly raised his hand, and with a wave, the image on the black bone throne vanished completely. Holy Sun. A stooped old man walked over slowly. He was wearing a large black cape, but white bones on his back pierced the cape and could be seen from the outside. What did the human say? Ming Wang turned to look at the old man. The old man was the master of the Hall of Justice in the Temple of Shadows. He specialized in various forms of torture. He had millions of ways to open the most tight-lipped mouths. Chapter 1240, Authentic or Fake? 2. Ming Wang had his suspicions regarding the Nine Souls Ring incident, so he ordered the master of the Hall of Justice to go to the dungeons to interrogate Mu Shi. Reporting to the Holy Sun, the human says that he did not swap the Nine Souls Ring. I also searched his space ring and found no trace of the Nine Souls Ring, the master of the Hall of Justice reported. It was just a simple sentence, but anyone who had suffered his torture would not be able to hide any secrets. Ming Wang frowned slightly. The suspicions in his heart were not yet dispelled. There's one more thing, speak. The Luo family sent an invitation to tomorrow's birthday banquet for their grand elder. As he spoke, the master of the Hall of Justice placed the invitation in Ming Wang's hand. I am informing the Holy Sun because the Holy Lord is resting, and I am afraid to disturb her. Ming Wang took the invitation. A strange look flashed across his black eyes. The Luo family. Luo Zifeng must be more than 1,000 years old now. Ming Wang suddenly asked. The Luo family was one of the ancient clans in central mainland. Their foundations were solid, and their grand elder, Luo Zifeng, was outstandingly powerful. His position in this mainland was a lofty one. The Luo family had nothing to do with the Temple of Shadows. Although their bases of power were close to each other, they usually minded their own business. Yes, the master of the Hall of Justice said. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he suddenly thought of something. Since that is the case and since the Holy Lord has just returned to the temple, she might as well take the opportunity to let the outside world know that she has returned. Send this invitation to the Holy Lord. The master of the Hall of Justice was somewhat taken aback. He took the invitation and brought it to Yi Qingtang's sleeping chambers. In her sleeping chambers, Yi Qingtang was familiarizing herself with the Holy Lord's behavioral patterns. Fortunately, there were many portraits of the Holy Lord in the sleeping chamber. Together with Ling Yan's description, Yi Qingtang began to grasp some of the Holy Lord's expressions. Yi Qingtang opened the room door in response to a knock and took the Luo family's invitation from the master of the Hall of Justice. Yi Qingtang could not help but frown slightly when she saw Luo Qifeng's name on the invitation. Yi Qingtang had known this Luo Zifeng in her previous life. He was an extremely talented and powerful figure in central mainland. Now, he must be about 1,000 years old. In her previous life, he had been a powerful tyrant in this mainland. In her previous life, the truth about Yi Qingtang's heart of the demon god had been revealed sometime after she had arrived in central mainland. This Luo Zifeng had ordered the Luo family to pursue her in an attempt to rob her of the heart of the demon god. Yi Qingtang had narrowly escaped death a few times, but they had all been close calls. But it turned out that, in this life, she was going to attend Luo Qifeng's birthday banquet in the capacity of the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows. Yi Qingtang was not stupid. She guessed that this invitation was another test. In the Temple of Shadows, she could use the excuse of remaining in her sleeping chambers to escape observation. But if she went out, sure enough, the next afternoon, Yi Qingtang saw a group of undead standing in the main hall of the Temple of Shadows. There were about a dozen of them, and one of them was the hall master. These undead were chosen to accompany Yi Qingtang to the Luo family to present her good wishes. On the surface, they were accompanying her, but Yi Qingtang knew that Ming Wang had sent these undead to secretly observe her. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.